Well, good morning. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Debra Pinkerton. Welcome to a special one-hour edition of Morning Light. This is day 2 of our coverage of America's 250th birthday.
So on the eve of Independence Day, we ponder if we are still free to believe. In fact, should we be free at all? From William Penn to the First Amendment, we'll explore the freedom of conscience and ask our Morning Light panel, did the founders get it right? Well, long before America declared independence from Britain, it wasn't a foregone conclusion that citizens of this brand new federation of states would have the right to decide what they believed, especially about spiritual matters. After all, the countries they fled had strong traditions of using God and religion as support for kings and parliaments. It was William Penn in 1701 who argued no citizen should be forced to believe or even to worship. Government had no power, he said, over the conscience.
Now, not everyone agreed. The Puritan founders of Massachusetts believed it was the duty of the state to promote and protect the Christian faith. In the early days, only male church members could vote, and congregational churches were supported by taxes. It wasn't until 1833 when the Bay State ended taxpayer funding of churches. In neighboring Rhode Island, Reverend Roger Williams argued to God alone belonged the conscience, not the government. This opened the doors for Catholics, Jews, and Muslims, even those with no belief at all. The First Amendment, though, finally settled the matter. Faith was an individual's choice.
So today, in 2026, 43 countries have an official government religion. 20 of those are officially Christian. 10 countries, including Afghanistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, have punishments for so-called apostates, those who leave or convert to another faith. 4 countries have declared themselves to be a theocracy. Each operates under a system where religious authority shapes the political power. So the question for the Morning Light panel today, did the framers get it right? Was William Penn, the Christian Quaker, right about leaving the sacred conscience alone? Pastor Mike Leonzo, Cynthia Lyons, and Megan Martin back with us. Good to have you back. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been a while, Jeff. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm going to start with you. This notion of conscience was not always an agreed to idea, in the sense that not everyone in the founding generation believed that this sacred fire of the conscience, as Washington described, was really the preeminent idea that should guard all the others. There were some who argued that establishing an official religion of the country, and in some cases the oaths of allegiances were to Jesus. But we have moved towards this idea of honoring God, but allowing people to have conscience. Why is that critical to the idea of America?
Well, I think that the idea of America, when I think of America, I think of freedom. I think of the land of the free because of the brave, all those who sacrificed for our freedoms. And so when you think about conscience, to me, I think of it as, for example, freedom of religion. It's a God-given right. It is not something that's a privilege of the state. And so I think that when you go back to the founding, you look at, our founders looked at history and what was going on. Anywhere that there was this compelled religion seemed to be a lot of persecution, a lot of war, a lot of conflict. And the American colonies were very diverse. And so to impose a singular religion would have, I think, imposed and created a lot of conflict that would have persisted over time. And I think the founding fathers, they didn't want that. They wanted peace through tolerance of religion and knowing that it was personal to the individual to believe what they believe. And then that belief became, I think, kind of the seed for all the other beliefs.
So you raise a point, which I think is kind of interesting, Pastor Mike, the notion of when a state makes a decision to impose a religious belief. You know, I meet young Iranians, I meet students from all over the world, in areas where the freedom of conscience, not just family and peer pressure, but the state, where it is a capital offense to convert in Iran to Christianity. But some might say, well, why can't we deal with the fallout and kind of have the state set the pace, and then we'll follow up with, you can have your conscience moment later?
Yeah, well, the state struggles to do things well, period. Let alone get into someone's faith system. And so, that would cause me great pause. I think Christianity is able to stand on its own. I don't think Christianity needs something to prop it up, doesn't need the state to advocate for it. But I also don't think it needs the state to advocate against it either, right? I would, I think a government which is neutral towards faith is probably the best kind of government, as opposed to one that's trying to jam this particular version of faith down someone's throat, or they're antagonistic to faith. So,
so Pennsylvania, take Pennsylvania. When the Irish began to move in, and the Italians, and people began to see communities that maybe had the only church was the Lutheran church, or the only church was the Methodist church, and suddenly you had immigrants wanting to build a Roman Catholic church. There was a strong pushback against that notion. Why isn't it the prerogative of a local municipality to say, hey, this is a Protestant zone, or why couldn't that be? And
well, things change really quick. I mean, things change with an election, right? I mean, so I think that's just a dangerous thing, because if you have a community that says, hey, Sweater Township is only going to be Christian, right? What do you do with all of the other people that are in there? I mean, compelled faith is not faith.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when you force someone to believe something, they're going to believe. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, but you haven't changed their heart.
I see. Yeah. Cynthia?
Well, I was just going to say, our founding fathers, I don't think could have ever, thought that this is where we would be 250 years later, good or bad. That being said, I think they gave us the ability to create a melting pot of faith-seeking people. Maybe not necessarily all Christians, but you look at it as, this is my opportunity to then share my faith with someone else who may be second-guessing what they're thinking. Whether they're living in a Catholic area, whether they're living in a Jewish area, wherever they're living. What is my responsibility of a Christian woman as I walk forward as a result of what our founding fathers did 250 years ago?
I find that interesting, because you work in the public school system, and you also work with a number of first-generation Americans, people who are immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers, and so, but people know you as a Christian. Those conversations, I mean, how do those conversations go if you're not saying, well, the school isn't going to sanction it, but Cynthia Lyons is a believer, and she's the one on duty at school.
Well, and I think that's also my job. It is to say I'm faith-filled, I'm a Christian woman, and I can say that. No matter what the forum is. And I'm not fearful of saying that. I'm also not fearful of saying I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. And because of my faith, I can walk forward and be redeemed. All that being said, I'm also a little older. So there's a little bit of life that I've kind of lived through. I think it would be difficult, or more difficult, for someone, say, in their early 20s, early 30s, to kind of walk that road and have no fear of speaking their faith.
So, Megan, how do we renew this idea? We have been talking about America 250. We love the train. We have some activity on the Mall in Washington. We'll have celebrations in many of the streets across Pennsylvania. But I don't hear too many people retelling the story of the American ideal and what were the core values and principles behind it. Some might say, well, it's just boring stuff. People know that. How do you make it relevant to this generation that has taken freedom and the freedom to believe for granted?
Jeff, that is an amazingly important question. And, I love America. I think the Founding Fathers got it right. My husband and I, we raised our kids to love America. But at Commonwealth Foundation, we recently conducted some polling, and you would be shocked to learn that 36% of young individuals that we polled between the ages of 18 and 34 are not proud to be American. And it's shocking. And we need to do better.
Why do you think that is?
I think they take for granted our freedom. They don't understand that we have the freedom of thought in America, the freedom of expression. So they're allowed to think what they think, feel what they feel, and live out their beliefs because they have the freedom that our forefathers have given us, and that those who've come after them have fought and protected for us. And so I think we need better civics education. I think that we need parents and grandparents to step up at home and foster a love of America and an appreciation for our freedoms. And I think that would really go a long way, because I think that they're really missing that.
Pastor Mike, your suggestion, if you were to sit down across from those cynical 18 to 35, 34-year-olds to remind them the story of America, what would you tell them?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is that people sacrificed greatly for us to have this freedom, right? Not only 250 years ago, but I think of my grandfather was in the Battle of the Bulge. He was wounded. He was taken as a prisoner of war. They didn't remove the bullet the Germans didn't remove the bullet from his leg until he was liberated 4 months later. And so I learned those stories as a kid. That was very real to me, right? My dad served in the Marine Corps. You know, I always knew that freedom is costly. And I think that's what I would try to explain to young people is that this came at a great price, which is, I think, an important thing for people to realize. I think the other thing is, the question is, where else would you want to live? What other country would you want to live in? If America is such a problem, what other country do you want to go to? And I've been around lots of parts of the world, and there's nowhere else I'd want to be than in the United States.
Well, it's a beautiful way to sum up this case for an exceptional country with exceptional ideas. Yes.
I would just say, you know, it is sad to hear, but in some senses, I don't know that it's shocking. However, I would love to have that conversation with the 18 to 36-year-olds and say, you can think that way because you live in the United States of America. There are a lot of other places that if you even answered that poll. Right.
So is that what it is then? I mean, are we forgetting the story? I'm watching the numbers of America's prestige. My mother's homeland of the Philippines. When I lived there as a missionary kid, 90% plus of Filipinos loved America. Now that number is down to 60s and the high 60s. The World War II generation isn't telling the story. Can the story be salvaged? Can we, in this moment, I'm being a little rhetorical here, but do you think we can use this moment of Independence Day weekend to begin to reseed the story?
Well, absolutely. But I also don't think it's just about July 4th. This is a huge opportunity for us to be able to prove to others that we are the greatest. We are United States of America. That being said, we also have a job on July 5th, on July 6th, December 1st, January 15th. Every other day of the year, we have the opportunity to say we have the right to think and worship because of what our founding fathers did for us.
Each of you should be appointed as ambassador somewhere in the world to tell the story of America. Thank you very much on this extraordinary weekend celebrating 250 years of America. Well, coming up on Morning Light, America's founding was deeply shaped by Christian principles. We often hear about the beliefs of John Adams and Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. Up next, we'll hear what historians have to say about America's very first president, George Washington. You're watching Morning Light right here on Lighthouse TV.
Welcome back. As we celebrate the 250th anniversary of our country, we reflect on President George Washington, the first president of the United States. Historians say his presidency was deeply influenced by his Christian faith. Visionary, intelligent, courageous, humble, faithful. Just a few adjectives to describe the first president of the United States, George Washington. Dr. Peter Lilback, theologian, church historian, and president of Westminster Theological Seminary, has served in pastoral ministry for more than 30 years. He's also an author and is known for his book, George Washington's Sacred Fire.
So I had been studying the writings of George Washington, literally on and off as a hobby for almost 20 years. So I began to read through his 39 volumes of collected writings. I started to go to locations where there are archival papers. I started to read early biographies of his life and piecing it together. And as a result, we discover Washington is far more of a Christian than most historians are willing to admit.
Some critics disagree, but Dr. Lilback says faith is what kept Washington grounded from the time he started serving our country.
In my book, I demonstrate over 200 different places where he appeals to the scriptures from Genesis to Revelation. That's a time when there was no word processor, no word search engine, no Cruden's Concordance. He's a general, he's a farmer, he's a president, and the Bible just came out of him. We like to say he knew the Bible right down to his fingertips.
What we do know about George Washington is George Washington believed absolutely centrally that you have to believe in God, you have to follow his commandments in Scripture if you're going to lead a good life. And church, attendance is critical. And he was an Anglican, which can be very formalistic and just going to church on Sunday. But George Washington, as many chaplains said, never missed a Sunday when he couldn't. And if there was a critical problem in the country, as president or as commanding officer, he called everyone to be in church on Sunday. He was one of the first to hire chaplains into every regiment that he could, and told the Continental Congress, you have to pay for this.
As principal of Veritas Academy and historian, Dr. Dan Spanger makes sure this piece of history is part of the school's curriculum.
For the students to say, what you've been given here in this country through George Washington, the critical role he played on top of everything else, is a culmination of this entire story. And if you don't understand that story, then you don't understand this. And more importantly, if you don't understand that story, you don't understand yourselves. And Washington is an absolute critical player in that.
History guided by faith and conviction.
God broke the mold when he made you. There's nobody else like you.
Pastor Dave Beiser preaches the gospel Sunday mornings at Cross Point Church in Harrisburg. But on every 4th of July, he serves as a historian and portrays John Harris Jr., the founder of Harrisburg. From the front porch of the John Harris Museum, he recites the Declaration of Independence.
Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Just like John Harris did so many years ago.
I think it's important for us to hear this document. We use it as a foundational piece, but if we never go back and visit it, we'll forget it.
A legacy that sets the foundation for the United States of America and articulates the rights that define American democracy.
History is important for several reasons, but the primary one is it lets us know where we've been, what we're capable of doing, and because we've done this before, or we've been here before, and we were able to chisel out a nation from nothing. We've had to start from scratch, and that's our history, and that says that's who we are. It's an important piece to who we are as Americans.
As president, George Washington visited Harrisburg in 1794 in connection with the Whiskey Rebellion. The museum holds a timeless piece of history marking the visit.
Yeah, so one of the neat things, he stood on what we believe was probably a mounting stone, a chiseled piece of stone that you would stand on to mount onto your horse. And so he stood on that to make a speech here in Harrisburg. And they took that stone and put his name on it, so that it would always be remembered as the stone Washington stood on to give his speech on his way to the Whiskey Rebellion.
George Washington is often referred to as the father of our country. 8 years as president, 1789 to 1797. Before becoming Commander-in-Chief of the United States, Washington was Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. Much of his time spent in the Keystone State. A story illustrates how George Washington led by example. It's recorded in a textbook written by Mara Pratt.
She wrote a story about George Washington, where he was an officer, and she's not clear, most likely the American Revolutionary period, probably early on in the war, where he was, rainy day, seems like the weather was rather poor, and he came through his camp, probably putting up a fortress or a barricade of some kind. His men were struggling.
And there was a corporal looking at all these privates doing the work, and he's barking orders, push harder, but he didn't step back to help.
George Washington got off his horse and helped himself to that project of getting this cannon out of the mud. And he ended up interacting with the corporal. He says to the corporal, I don't know why you didn't help. He said, well, I'm a corporal. That's not what I do. And he said, well, I'm the commander-in-chief, and this is what we do. We help. And so the next time something happens, call me. I'll help.
And in that process, he showed his men how valuable they were. He reminded what the abuse of power looks like to a small little corporal. At the same time, he indicated what humility and leadership looks like. That being able to help others, not because it's in your job description, because it's part of your vision.
He did not want fame. Anytime he was pushed forward, he stepped back and gave other people credit. When at the Battle of Monmouth Court, when he sort of got himself in trouble but saved the day, he immediately gave credit to his officers and his soldiers for doing it.
I think that what we take away from that story is there's nobody who is high enough or in a position that removes us enough from the things that need to be accomplished by every single person. That side by side, no matter who you are, you should be able to work with anybody. Scripture says that to us. We should never look at somebody as lower than ourselves. We should always be willing to help a friend. We should be willing to invest in the things that matter to those around us.
A form of leadership that historians believe is deeply rooted in Washington's faith in God. So as we look back on the 250th anniversary, we remember, we pay respect, we salute, we hold tight onto this piece of history that shaped our country, and we can learn from it.
George Washington was the indispensable man. He was far from perfect. And one of the things I like to say about Washington, when he's been attacked by people in our era because he was a slave owner, we have to need to say, that's right, that's sad. He was the fourth generation of slave owners. But we often forget that in his will, he determined not to die with slaves in his hands. He freed every one of his slaves in his will on his death because he realized it was morally wrong.
They made a lot of mistakes, and we know what those mistakes are, and those are worth studying. But what they established is actually the only foundation you can have for a functioning republic where a free people can live in a way that's productive, healthy, right, and successful. And so we can only do that if we study the example of those born. That doesn't mean we're not aware of their blemishes and failures, but the thing that they actually created will only continue if we follow the example they laid out for us.
And I think we need to remember that. These were real people, just like us, who were put into a situation, and they made the best of it. And fortunately, there are lots of really good things that happened. And we're here today to be representatives of that founding that that's our bedrock. It's kind of who we are. It's our DNA.
It's interesting to note George Washington was not present for the signing of the Declaration of Independence. At the time, he was Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army and stationed in New York City, where his troops were in active combat against the British. Still to come on Morning Light.
So you have ambition.
Since the Crown sent me to serve, I've yet to have a good experience with a colonist.
I look forward to changing your opinion.
Much of that territory is unexplored. It's wild, unpredictable, and dangerous.
What are you called? George Washington.
You are watching a clip from the new film Young Washington, which is now in theaters across the country. It tells the story of George Washington's early life, focusing on his experiences as a young soldier and how it shaped him. We'll have a preview next.
Young Washington is in movie theaters nationwide. It portrays the life of George Washington during his formative years, starting as a teenager into his mid-20s.
What happened, Washington? All those bullet holes in your jacket. How are you alive?
I don't know.
You have no military service. You are a boy. You are not British, yet they send you to speak for them. So that when you fail, they'll have someone to blame.
Young Washington, you lost in the New World.
Who does own this land, if not the one who has the will to tame it? You do not want to start a war. What do? We fight! Hold your ground! There is no retreat!
What are you called?
My name is George Washington.
Before George Washington became the father of our nation, he was a soldier fighting to survive. Tom Provost, the co-screenwriter of Young Washington, joins us to share why it's important to understand how this shaped his character and his faith. Tom, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's talk about the movie Young Washington.
It's a biopic of George Washington, but in his youth, which is a period of his life that's very rarely been explored. And our director, John Irwin, it was his vision for many years to do a story about George Washington, his formative years. How did he become the George Washington we all know on the dollar bill and the father of our country? So it was exciting to work on it with him. He's a visionary, and it's an amazing story.
It is an amazing story. I watched the movie, beautifully shot, so well written. Why did you think it was important to share this story?
His life as a youth was so difficult, and life for, I think, a lot of us, I think most people, life can be very hard. It's a very edifying and uplifting story because when you see this young man go through so much difficulty and so much failure, it's encouraging because when we have failures in our life or difficulty in our life, it's uplifting to see, okay, someone was able to make it through all this enormous difficulty and still survive and become a really great man.
Yeah, and when watching the movie, I noticed that his mother mentioned faith a number of times. It seems like she was really grounded in her faith of God, and that inspired him.
Very much so. And both his older brother and another man played by Kelsey Grammer in the movie were also very encouraging to him. And he was not allowed to go to school past age 12 and was very angry about that as a youth. But they gave him all these wonderful books to read and literature and the faith of his mother. They all really came together to help him get through adversity and then become George Washington.
What really interested you the most about Washington as a young man?
Again, I would say it's his failures. He was a very ambitious young man, and he wanted to be in the British military. He basically wanted to be British, which was very surprising to me when I started studying his life. And he had to essentially give up all of his ambition and learn to live not for himself, but for other people. And he became what I think is one of the great servant leaders of all time. So that's very inspiring to me as someone who struggles every day to do that. And again, it helps uplift me to learn about his story.
What was it like writing it and putting it together?
I do a lot of adaptations as a writer, and this is essentially an adaptation. We're adapting his life. We, as writers, my writing partner Debra and I were adapting John Irwin's idea, his vision. And it can be really difficult. the cool thing about this is that his story, without changing anything, is an amazing story. I mean, you said you've seen the movie. What you see is actually what happened, with maybe a couple of little timeline tweaks that we did. So it was actually quite fun. And it was interesting to me. My mother was an American history professor, and her specialty was the Revolution. And when I was younger, all I wanted to deal with was movies, and she would get very frustrated because I had no interest in American history. And my parents died very young, but we laughed that my mom is smiling down from heaven because all of a sudden I had to be immersed in her world. And it was really thrilling to learn all these things about his youth that I think a lot of people don't know. There are a lot of surprises in the movie of actual and divine stories that happened to him that I think a lot of people don't know about.
Some of these traits, some of these things that we see in the movie, how do you see them carrying through all the way through his life?
Well, again, he became very much a servant leader. And we see in the movie that he lets his ambition go because of a number of things that happened in the movie. I got in trouble in a previous interview about giving spoilers away. And it may seem silly to say spoilers, but they helped him become a better man and helped teach him that to let go of his own ambition and instead of worrying about himself, serve the men around him. That's what made him such a great servant leader. And he was constantly in his life doing things for others. He really didn't even want to be president, but accepted the mantle of it for the betterment of the people around him.
Yeah, it is so interesting to watch when you're seeing him as a young adult and some of the decisions he makes and how he learns from some of those decisions. And you can see how that really does carry over throughout his life.
Very, very much so, yes.
What do you hope people walk away with? When they come to the movie theater, they watch it, they leave. What do you hope stays with them?
I hope that they are very inspired, that whatever difficulties they're going through, it can make them have faith and hope that things can get better. Obviously, the movie is not political at all, but we are in pretty divided times, some people would say. And I think this is a movie that the story of his life, and when you watch it, it might be something that can unite a lot of people around the great history that we have in our country. And again, just encouraging us to be better people, and how to do that by letting go of ourselves and focusing on the people around us.
Yeah, that is so well said. Thank you so much for sharing this with us, and hope many people get to watch this. As we mentioned, Young Washington is in theaters right now. It's really a wonderfully made movie. You think of George Washington really as a general or a president, but not as a teen.
Or a marble statue. I mean, really, when you think of Washington today, it's almost a caricature of the actual person. So you don't think about interactions with parents or disobedience, maybe the cherry tree incident. But beyond that, we really don't have a sense of who he was. Great insight, I think, into this extraordinary life from an early age.
Yeah, it's definitely something you should go see with your family.
I'm going to do it. Well, the State Museum of Pennsylvania is celebrating America's 250th with a special exhibit spanning 3 centuries. You can check out more than 140 rare objects, including the flag of the very first Pennsylvania Regiment, monumental artwork, and historical displays from 1876 centennial celebrations and the 1976 bicentennial.
You can check it out now through August 2nd. For hours and pricing, check out statemuseumpa.org. Stay with us. We're back with another half hour of our America's 250th Freedom to Believe special.
Welcome back to our special 1-hour edition of Morning Light, America's 250th Freedom to Believe. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Debra Pinkerton. Last month marked the 82nd anniversary of D-Day. More than 24 World War II veterans returned to the beaches of Normandy to remember the day they helped to liberate Europe. Among them was a young man from Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hillsdale College senior Josiah Jones was selected as a student ambassador for the Best Defense Foundation, helping preserve the stories of the greatest generation. Josiah grew up as the son of missionaries in Egypt Egypt, Oman, and Ukraine, bringing a pretty unique perspective on the price of freedom and the freedom to believe. Josiah, thanks for being with us, and thanks for being willing to tell us a little bit about your adventure to Normandy. First, how did this all come about? You're a student at Hillsdale College, and then you get on a plane. Were you on the plane with World War II veterans?
Yes. Yeah, we had a chartered flight straight to Normandy from Atlanta, Georgia. Delta Airlines partnered and provided that for us.
So average age of the veteran. These are D-Day, World War II certified veterans.
Well, not all of them were at D-Day, but they're all World War II veterans.
Okay.
And they were 98 to 106. So we had some precious cargo aboard for sure.
Yeah. And had the ones who fought on D-Day, were any of them in proximity to you on the plane? I mean, could you talk to them on the flight? Were there conversations happening, or?
We could, for sure, but they encouraged us to let them sleep on the flight because as soon as we touched down in Normandy, we were greeted by the First Lady of France. So we wanted our veterans to be rested and, ready to meet all the dignitaries.
Incredible. So the First Lady of France, Mrs. Macron, is waiting for you on the tarmac at Charles de Gaulle Airport?
Deauville Airport in Normandy.
All right. So then from Normandy, when you arrive at Normandy, what do they have planned for these veterans?
Well, they roll out the red carpet. Some of the U.S. military that are stationed in Europe are there. They have a big band. They have the First Lady of France. And then they also present two of our veterans with the French Legion of Honor, which is one of the highest civilian honors that they award to civilians in France. And they awarded two of our veterans who had helped liberate France for the first time. They were 100 years old and they just got that medal.
Did they know that honor was coming?
I believe that they did, but I think it was a surprise up until the flight. I think we told them on the flight.
So you have this responsibility, which is to tell the story of two veterans who died, two men who died at D-Day, who are from your hometown. Who were they? And tell us a little bit about their story, the story that you carried to Normandy.
Absolutely. We visited two American cemeteries. There's multiple American cemeteries overseas, multiple in France, but we visited two of them in France, one being the Brittany American Cemetery and one being the very famous Normandy American Cemetery. So
where President Reagan was the Normandy.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and where Secretary Hegseth just was for the ceremony on D-Day. But I got to choose any men or women buried in the cemetery, and I wanted to choose men from my hometown. So in Brittany, I honored a man named Lieutenant Theodore Edward Howe. He was born in Morristown over in Bucks County, but actually took a civilian job in Carlisle at the Army post before the war. And then in Normandy, I got to honor somebody who was raised in Carlisle. His name was William McCabe. He was a flight officer of a glider on D-Day. And
that's dangerous.
Very dangerous, very dangerous. One of the most dangerous jobs in the Army at the time. And he was part of that initial wave on D-Day and did not survive his landing.
So he did not survive the landing itself?
Well, I believe so. Now, it's difficult to find information on these types of things because it was such a crazy day. But my understanding is he did not survive the landing.
So let me be clear. So you've got the stories to tell. You are telling the stories at a podium in the cemetery?
Yes, so we went right up to their graves. We had our living World War II veterans surrounding the graves, and we got to tell their story and then put sand over the names, which is sort of a ceremonial thing that they do.
This is where you're rubbing it on to the
Yes, and it makes the names more visible and sort of connects them to the soil that they died to liberate.
Okay. So D-Day for a lot of us is a movie. It is cinematic, it's dramatic. Or it is a famous speech that is, part of our kind of American consciousness. Did you feel any emotion when you were there, or are you jet lagged? Is it difficult to make this feel real? Did it feel real to you?
It felt very real, and it felt very much not like a movie as soon as you step foot, especially when you look and you see the rows of almost 10,000 graves at the Normandy American Cemetery, especially because I was with our 28 living World War II veterans. And they were telling the stories of what they remember of being there 82 years ago.
Were they emotional?
They were very emotional. For one of our veterans, it was his first time ever returning to Omaha Beach since that day.
Wow.
He was on a boat just off of the beach and saw horrible things.
What kept him away?
You know, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
I just know that eventually now he's finally made the decision that he wants to return. He came with his dad, or excuse me, not his dad, his son.
Yeah.
And they walked the beach together, and it was a very emotional scene.
So the mission of the organization that you travel with, the name of the organization, and what was the whole idea about bringing these veterans back to a point which for some could be, as you described, very traumatic?
Absolutely. Well, it's called the Best Defense Foundation. It was founded by NFL linebacker Donnie Edwards and his wife Catherine Edwards. It was founded in around the 75th anniversary, so around 2018, 2019, specifically for these battlefield returns for veterans. And what veterans often will find, we've seen, is that when they return to the battlefields, it's sort of closure for them because they're able to see, you know, where their brothers died, where they were wounded themselves likely, and where they fought. And it is a traumatic thing, but it actually provides some closure for them. And both are World War II veterans, and they also take Vietnam veterans to Vietnam now.
I see. So was there any point when you were hearing something, you're in this moment, and to me this feels like, you know, your wedding day, your graduation day, you try to remember certain pieces of that day. Was there anything that you said, oh, I've got to write that down, I don't want to ever forget this or this moment or this smell or this sight?
I think the first thing that comes to mind, there's quite a few moments. I was sitting on Omaha Beach at a cafe for lunch with one of our oldest veteran, 106-year-old. His name is Art Rose. And he was off Omaha Beach on D-Day. And sitting at the cafe with him, enjoying lunch, and he just keeps looking out in the water, and he told me at least 3 or 4 times, I can't believe 82 years ago I'm sitting here having lunch with you. And I mean, it's just mind-blowing. It really connects you to the fact that the reason why we were able to sit there and, you know, freely say what we want, believe what we want, live in this, you know, sort of Western civilization where we're able to have freedom is because of what he did 82 years ago.
Yeah. I mentioned in the intro to you that you grew up in some fascinating places. You were on the mission field, and then you were in Ukraine, your last mission station with your family right before the invasion. What do you, as an American citizen, how do you bridge these generations, looking at what they did, what they said, that wonderful man that you're sitting across from in Normandy, having lunch with, and that your experiences? It's a lot of emotion packed into a pretty young life for you. What do you do with all this now? Where do you take this, all of your experience, and then where does it go?
It really inspires me. Especially now that it's the 250th, you know, year of our independence. And I sort of see our country is, you know, sort of at a turning point where we're facing a time of a lot of division. We're facing a time of a lot of strife and fighting about what our future will look like. And it really has put into perspective for me what makes America great and what we need to preserve. And it's inspired me to, you know, dedicate my life to telling these stories and making sure that the greatness of America is preserved, because if there's no America, there's no free world anymore.
Yeah, that phrase, of course, President Reagan used it again and again, the last best hope.
Absolutely.
You feel that?
Oh my goodness, everywhere I went in the world, we are the city on the hill. No matter what the media will tell you, the average person in the world looks up to America, wants to be like America. And everything that America decides in our politics and our culture, the rest of the world is influenced by that. And I don't think the average American understands that and just how much influence we have by virtue of being American citizens.
30 seconds left. You're also, I mean, you're a citizen of this country, but you're also a Christian. So you've got dual citizenship. Overlay that on top of what you learned and saw and heard. How does that transform even the way that you engage politically, the way that you handle a disagreement?
Well, first and foremost, as a Christian, I recognize that every person is made with the image of God and has the dignity. And that's, of course, what our founders recognized 250 years ago. It's woven into the fabric of our nation with our natural rights and liberties. But I recognize that every single person, regardless of their nationality, has those natural rights and has that dignity. Yet we still have to have a nation state. And so I approach, you know, sort of those issues as very challenging at times. But I think if you lead with the truth and you lead with the, you know, solid foundation that Christ provides us, I think all else will work its way out.
It allows you to have the experience of those better angels of our nature.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as Lincoln said. Josiah, thank you. Thanks for sharing this incredible journey, and I can't wait for more field reports from where you go next. We'll look forward to it.
Thank you.
Well, still to come on Morning Light, honoring America's freedom with a song. A distinguished lineup of Christian artists will gather in Washington, D.C.'s iconic Kennedy Center. One of the performers, Tim Lovelace, goes one-on-one with Debra up next.
Welcome back. Tim Lovelace is an award-winning comedian, musician, and songwriter. With more than 3 decades of performing worldwide, Tim uses his humor and music to motivate and inspire people. On this 250th anniversary, Tim will perform this evening in our nation's capital at the Freedom Gathering, a musical celebration of God and country. Tim, thanks for joining us. It's really a pleasure to be talking with you. I hear you all the time on our local Christian radio station.
Well, Debra, it's wonderful to be joining you all, and it's just it's a beautiful day. Woke up this morning. I've already had about 3 cups of coffee that made my socks go up and down, so I'm ready for this interview.
Well, let's go right ahead. Let's talk about the Freedom Gathering, a musical celebration that's taking place in our nation's capital. Talk to us about it.
Well, it's a fantastic lineup. So let me see. I'll go down the list. We have, first of all, for the choirs, they'll be joining to make a wonderful mass choir, but we'll have the Prestonwood Choir from Texas. And the Woodstock Choir. We'll be combining, so a fantastic choir. And we'll have soloists and groups such as Charles Billingsley. And he does a super job. Taranda Green from Brooklyn Tabernacle. His love and mercy. And we'll also have Ernie Haas and Signature Sound. Very well, my fairy babe. Their harmony is fantastic and their energy. Udio Vega, one of the greatest saxophone players in America, he will be there. In fact, he will be playing on the song that I will be doing. And let me also add, too, that this is not only in Washington, but it's at the world-famous Kennedy Center. So it's great to have something of faith and family to celebrate our 250 years, but it's going to be at the Kennedy Center. So that's a real honor that it's going to be a night of worship and praise and honor and respect to our servicemen and women and how proud we are of America. So I'm thrilled to be part of this, Debra.
Yeah. So tell us about what you're going to be performing.
Well, the medley called Celebration of America, I just completed a new piano project, and the record company, Stowtown, said, choose any song you want to. So that was a blast. So I just chose some of my favorite songs. And the only thing they asked is, would you mind doing a patriotic medley? I said, not only would I love to do it, I would be honored to do it because I appreciate our country and our servicemen and women. And so I just chose songs that mean a lot to me. And one of those songs is Shenandoah. that doesn't find its way into a lot of patriotic medleys. It's just some of the greatest melodies that we have in America to honor our country and put them together. And then what was fun about it is they allowed me to choose the songs, arrange the songs. So a lot of times in the recording industry, the producer goes in, I co-produce this one, but a lot of times they produce it and they have, the arrangements. Then they come in and tell you, play God Bless America right here and play this section, and then we're going to modulate and do this. But I could play it just the way I heard it in my head, which is a little different because it's like a bug zapper going off in my head as a comedian. But I was able to arrange it just the way I wanted to. It was a real fun process.
Oh, wow. It will really be so beautiful to hear that in the Kennedy Center. Tim, how do you use your so many talents to spread the gospel?
Well, comedy is one of the greatest universal ways to reach people.
Turn to somebody and ask them, can you glitter?
Because so many people, even in, say, the Christian world, people have their favorites as far as bluegrass gospel, southern gospel, CCM, praise and worship, old hymns. There's just such a vast array, just within one genre. So then when I go to, let's say, a bluegrass festival or a college, a Christian college, a secular college, a corporate meeting, comedy is universal. So I can take it anywhere. And then musically, I can adapt a lot to where I am, which is fun. So if I'm at a country show, I can take and maybe play my guitar more or harmonica more. And I'm at certain places, I play the keyboard more, and which makes it fun for me because it's not always the same show, the same performance, the same set list. But I can go different places and adapt music along with the laughter, which I've already said is universal. And then I can tell people where I found real joy, lasting joy. And that, of course, is in Jesus.
Yeah. Spreading the gospel among so many different audiences. How do you hope our country really comes together when we celebrate the 250th anniversary? What do you hope happens spiritually?
Well, America is so special to have a country where the people are actually the voice. And we've had bumps in the road, just like any country, but I still believe it's the greatest country on earth. And spiritually, I think sometimes we have complicated our outlook on democracy and our outlook on Christianity, but Jesus said, I'll give you a new commandment. I believe it all starts with love, and it starts with having a voice where people can be kind to each other. And it's not just a simple answer, but it's a simple answer with strength. There's strength in simplicity. And the scripture says they will know we are Christians by our love. So when we come together and when we can sit down together, and I travel all over this country, and sometimes I'm in the big cities, but a lot of times I'm in a small city, and I see a lot of good. I see people of all different faiths and different races and just different beliefs and different ages sitting together at a football game and laughing and smiling and helping each other. And I see our farmers, and I see our working class, and I see so many people that are friends with different people. They come together. But bad news travels. So I have a ton of hope for America. I'm proud of this country. I believe there is more good than bad. And so I'm excited to be celebrating this as we love on our country and start to learn to love on each other.
I certainly love what you just said. Tim, thank you so much for spending this time with us. The Freedom Gathering, a musical celebration of God and country concert, is tonight at 8 at the Kennedy Center Concert Hall in Washington, D.C. Tickets can be purchased by going to imcconcerts.com. Stay with us. We're back right after the break. We want to thank you for joining us for this special edition of Morning Light, America's 250th Freedom to Believe.
And we leave you today with professional American stage and opera singer Julianne Patricia Pirtle singing the American Medley. You'll remember Julianne is the Chief Operating Officer of the Marian Anderson Museum and Historical Society in Philadelphia. Be sure to check on your neighbors, and we'll see you again real soon.
The